Why God wakes you at 3 a.m. There's a reason why in the quiet stillness of the night you find yourself awake at 3 a.m. It's not random, it's not an accident, it's a divine appointment. At 3 a.m. the world is at its quietest and all distractions are stripped away. The noise of the day, the deadlines, the endless scrolling, the relentless chatter is silenced. And in that silence, God speaks. But why 3 a.m.? Why this sacred hour? 3 a.m. is the time when the human spirit is most vulnerable, most open. It's the hour when heaven touches earth, when God calls out to you, not with the loudness of thunder, but with the whisper of purpose. He's saying, wake up, child. There's something I need to show you. Maybe it's a burden on your heart that you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a dream you've allowed to die. At sunrise or at worship or in the morning, we surface thoughts that may strike. Now what is, or maybe it's simply his desire to spend time with you, to pour his peace into your soul. But here's the truth. When God wakes you, he is calling you to something deeper. He's inviting you to rise from complacency, to leave behind fear, doubt, and hesitation. He's reminding you that there is a mission, a purpose, a destiny that only you can fulfill. Think about it. In the Bible, God often called his people in the watches of the night. He called Samuel by name while he was lying in bed. He revealed himself to Jacob in a midnight vision. And in the darkest hours, Jesus himself went away to pray, seeking the Father's presence. So, what is God saying to you at 3 a.m.? At 3 a.m., the world seems to stand still. The chaos and clamor of the day fade away, leaving only silence and stillness. In this sacred hour, when the distractions of life are quieted, a unique space is created. A moment in time when the spiritual realm feels closer, more tangible. This is not an ordinary occurrence. It is a divine appointment, a moment orchestrated by God himself to meet with you. In the busyness of daily life, it can be challenging to hear the still, small voice of God. Our minds are constantly pulled in 1,000 directions. Work demands, personal responsibilities, endless notifications vying for our attention. But in the stillness of the early morning hours, when the world is asleep, God finds an opportunity to call out to you. It's a moment carefully chosen, not by chance, but by intention. This is not just a coincidence of sleeplessness or restlessness. It is a holy interruption designed to capture your undivided attention. There is something profound about being awake at a time when everything around you is quiet. The night carries with it an air of vulnerability, a stripping away of the defenses we build up during the day. At 3 a.m., you are more receptive, your heart more open, your soul more willing to listen. It is in this moment of openness that God steps in, creating a space where he can speak to you without the noise of the world drowning out his voice. It is an appointment with the Creator, an invitation to step into a sacred encounter. The stillness at 3 a.m. is not just external, it is internal. God uses this time to still your heart, to calm the racing thoughts, and to bring you to a place of reflection. In this quietness, he reveals things that might otherwise be hidden in the busyness of the day. Perhaps he is showing you areas of your life that need healing or change. Maybe he is reminding you of dreams and purposes that you have set aside or forgotten. Or perhaps he simply wants to remind you of his love and presence, to assure you that you are not alone. Throughout the Bible, we see examples of God meeting his people in moments of stillness. Elijah heard God not in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but in the gentle whisper that came in the silence. Jacob wrestled with God in the night and found his identity transformed. Even Jesus in the darkest hours withdrew to quiet places to pray, seeking communion with the Father. These moments of stillness were not random. They were intentional, divine appointments where God revealed himself and his plans. The stillness of 3 a.m. is a powerful reminder that God is always near, even when the world feels distant. It is in this quiet hour that he calls you to lay down your burdens, to let go of your fears, and to trust in his guidance. The stillness is not meant to be a place of fear or anxiety. It is a place of rest, a space where you can find peace that transcends understanding. It is here in the quiet that you are reminded of who God is and who you are in him. This divine appointment is also a call to action. When God wakes you in the stillness, he is inviting you to rise, to respond, to engage with him. It is not a passive moment, but an active one. He may be prompting you to pray for someone, to intercede for a situation, or to seek his wisdom for a decision you are facing. He may be stirring your heart with a vision or a purpose that requires your obedience. Whatever the reason, this moment is not just about being awake. It is about being attentive, about tuning your spirit to the frequency of God's voice. In the stillness of 3 a.m., God is not just waking your body, He is awakening your soul. He is calling you to step away from the noise of life and into His presence. He is reminding you that even in the darkest hours, He is with you, guiding you, speaking to you, and preparing you for what lies ahead. The stillness is His canvas, a space where He can paint His purposes with clarity and precision. When God stirs you from sleep in the middle of the night, it is never without meaning. It is not a random moment or an inconvenience to your rest. It is a sacred invitation to step into something greater than yourself. It is as if heaven reaches down and gently nudges you, calling you to pay attention, to lean in closer, to seek the divine purpose that has been placed upon your life. This invitation is not loud or forceful. It is tender yet insistent, a reminder that you were created for something significant. Purpose is one of the greatest gifts God gives to humanity, yet it is often buried beneath the weight of daily life. The demands of schedules, responsibilities, and the endless distractions of the modern world can make it easy to lose sight of why you are here. But God does not forget the reason He created you, and in the quiet hours of the night, He calls you to remember. It is in these moments, when you are most vulnerable, most open, and least guarded, that God speaks to the deepest parts of your soul. He calls you to awaken, not just physically, but spiritually, to the reason He placed you on this earth. This sacred invitation is deeply personal. God knows every intricate detail of your life, your struggles, your dreams, your doubts, and your fears. He knows the moments when you have felt lost, when you have questioned your worth, when you have wondered if you matter. And in His infinite love, He meets you in the stillness to remind you that you do. He whispers to your heart, "You were made for more. I have plans for you, plans to prosper you, to give you hope, to give you a future." It is an invitation to rise above the mundane and step into the extraordinary calling He has placed on your life. Sometimes this call is to confront the things you have been avoiding. It may be a fear you have refused to face, a broken relationship you have left unresolved, or a dream you have given up on because it seemed too impossible. God's invitation is not always comfortable, but it is always purposeful. He does not wake you to leave you where you are. He wakes you to move you forward, to stretch you, to refine you, to mold you into the person He created you to be. There is a reason this invitation comes in the quiet hours of the night. It is in the stillness that your heart is most receptive to His voice. During the day, the noise and busyness can drown out the gentle nudges of the Spirit. But in the solitude of the night, when the world is asleep, your spirit is more attuned to the whispers of God. He uses this time to draw you closer, to help you see the things you might have missed, to bring clarity to what once seemed uncertain. The sacred invitation to purpose is not just about hearing God's voice. It is about responding to it. God does not call you to stay where you are. He calls you to move. He calls you to act. Maybe He is stirring your heart with a vision of something new, a ministry, a business, a relationship, or a dream that aligns with His will. Or perhaps He is calling you to let go of something that is holding you back. Fear, doubt, or the lies you've believed about yourself. Whatever it is, the invitation is clear. Step into what I have for you. This invitation is not limited by your past. God's purpose for you is not diminished by your failures or mistakes. He does not look at where you have been to determine where you can go. Instead, He sees your potential, your gifts, and your heart. He knows the plans He has for you, and they are plans for good. And He calls you not because of what you have done, but because of who He is, a God who redeems, restores, and makes all things new. The sacred invitation to purpose is a call to trust. It is an invitation to believe that God's plans are higher than your plans, that His thoughts are higher than your thoughts. It is an opportunity to surrender your own agenda and align yourself with His will. This is not always easy. It requires faith, courage, and a willingness to step into the unknown. But it is in this surrender that you find true purpose. When God calls you in the night, He is not simply waking you from sleep. He is awakening your spirit. He is stirring the gifts and talents He placed within you before you were even born. He is reminding you that you are part of a greater story, a divine narrative that He is weaving together for His glory. This is a sacred moment, a holy encounter, an invitation to step into the life you were always meant to live. Throughout Scripture, there are moments when God calls His people in the stillness of the night, in the midnight hours when the world sleeps but heaven is awake. These moments are not random or coincidental. They are divine appointments, carefully orchestrated by God to deliver a message, reveal a purpose, or awaken His people to action. They are reminders that the Creator of the universe is not bound by time and chooses to move and speak when the heart is most open and the world is most silent. These midnight calls are woven throughout the Bible, each carrying a profound significance that resonates even today. Consider the story of Samuel, a young boy serving in the temple under the priest Eli. In the quiet of the night, Samuel heard a voice calling his name. At first he thought it was Eli and ran to him, only to be told to return to bed. But the voice came again and again, and Eli finally realized it was the Lord calling the boy. Samuel's midnight call was the beginning of his prophetic ministry, a pivotal moment in which God revealed Himself to a child who was ready to listen. This story reminds us that God often chooses the quiet hours to speak, when distractions are few and hearts are still. It shows that His calls are not limited by age, status, or experience. He calls those who are willing to respond. Jacob also experienced a life-changing encounter in the night. As he prepared to face his estranged brother Esau, he found himself alone, wrestling with a mysterious figure until daybreak. This was no ordinary wrestling match. It was an encounter with God. Through this struggle, Jacob was transformed, both spiritually and physically. He received a new name, Israel, and a renewed sense of purpose. This midnight encounter was not just about physical struggle, but about spiritual surrender. It demonstrates that God often uses the darkness of the night to bring clarity, transformation, and a new direction for those who are willing to wrestle with Him and trust in His plans. In the New Testament, we see Paul and Silas, imprisoned for preaching the gospel, experiencing a divine breakthrough at midnight. Bound in chains and locked in a dungeon, they chose to worship and pray instead of despairing. As their voices rose in praise, an earthquake shook the prison, opening the doors and loosening their chains. This midnight miracle was not just for Paul and Silas. It led to the salvation of the jailer and his household. Their story is a powerful reminder that midnight calls are often moments of deliverance, and that God's presence can turn the darkest situations into opportunities for His glory to be revealed. The midnight call is also seen in the parable of the 10 virgins. Jesus used this story to emphasize the importance of readiness and vigilance. At midnight, a cry rang out announcing the arrival of the bridegroom. Those who were prepared with their lamps filled and burning were welcomed into the wedding banquet, while those who were unprepared were left outside. This parable serves as a sobering reminder that God's calls often come unexpectedly, and we must always be ready to respond. It underscores the necessity of staying spiritually alert, keeping our hearts aligned with God's will, and being prepared to act when He moves. Jesus Himself provides the ultimate example of seeking God in the quiet hours of the night. Before His crucifixion, He withdrew to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray, pouring out His heart to the Father in anguish and surrender. This midnight prayer was a moment of profound intimacy with God, where Jesus sought strength to fulfill His purpose. It was also a moment of alignment, where He declared, "Not my will, but yours be done." Through this, Jesus demonstrated the importance of seeking God's presence in the darkest hours, finding strength, clarity, and peace in communion with the Father. These biblical precedents for midnight calls reveal a pattern of divine encounters that transcend time. God uses these moments to speak to His people, to reveal His plans, to deliver, to transform, and to call them into deeper intimacy with Him. They are moments of awakening, where the natural gives way to the supernatural, and God's purposes are made known. Whether through a whisper in the temple, a wrestling match by the river, a song of praise in a prison, or a prayer in a garden, these midnight calls carry a message of hope, purpose, and the unfailing faithfulness of God. They remind us that the darkest hours are often the moments when God's light shines brightest. When God calls, especially in the quiet stillness of the night, it is never a trivial matter. His voice carries weight, purpose, and an invitation to something greater. Yet responding to this call is not always easy. It demands more than just hearing. It requires action, faith, and trust. It is a moment of decision, one that can alter the course of your life. To respond to God's call is to step into the unknown with confidence that He who calls is faithful to lead and provide. It is an act of obedience that requires surrender, courage, and a willingness to let go of your own plans to embrace His. Often the call of God comes unexpectedly, at a time when you are least prepared or least expecting it. It interrupts the routine, disrupts the comfort, and challenges the status quo. But this is the nature of His call. It does not fit neatly into the plans you have made for yourself. Instead, it beckons you to align your heart and your life with His divine purpose. Responding to this call requires a willingness to put aside your agenda and open your heart to His. It is not about convenience, it is about obedience. The challenge of responding lies not only in the call itself, but in the doubts and fears that arise when you hear it. What if you are not enough? What if you fail? What if the path ahead is too difficult? These questions are natural, but they are not the end of the story. When God calls, He does not do so based on your qualifications or abilities. He calls because He has already equipped you with what you need to fulfill His purpose. His call is not a demand for perfection, but an invitation to trust Him, even when the road ahead seems unclear. Responding to God's call also means letting go of control. It requires a surrender of the things you hold tightly, your plans, your fears, your comfort zones. This surrender is not easy. It can feel like stepping off a cliff without knowing where you will land. But in that surrender, you find freedom. You discover that God's plans are far greater than your own, that His ways are higher, and that His purpose is always good. When you let go, you make room for Him to move in ways you could never imagine. There is also a cost to responding to God's call. It may mean walking away from things that once felt secure or comfortable. It may mean stepping into situations that challenge you, stretch you, and push you beyond your limits. It may mean facing opposition, criticism, or rejection. But the cost is never greater than the reward. The reward is a life lived in alignment with God's purpose, a life that bears fruit for His kingdom, a life that is filled with His presence and peace. Responding to God's call is not something you do alone. When He calls, He goes with you. He walks beside you, guides you, and strengthens you. He does not leave you to figure it out on your own. His presence is your assurance, His word your guide, and His Spirit your source of strength. As you respond, you learn to rely on Him in ways you never have before. You begin to see His hand at work in every step, His provision in every need, and His faithfulness in every trial. There is also great joy in responding to God's call. It is the joy of knowing that you are walking in step with the Creator of the universe, that your life is part of a greater story, and that you are fulfilling the purpose for which you were created. This joy is not dependent on circumstances. It is rooted in the assurance that you are exactly where you are meant to be, doing exactly what you are meant to do. Responding to God's call may not always be easy, but it is always worth it. It is a journey of faith, a step into the unknown, with the assurance that He who calls you is faithful. It is an opportunity to experience His power, His grace, and His love in ways that are only possible when you say yes to Him. It is a decision that not only changes your life, but also impacts the lives of those around you. When you respond to God's call, you become a vessel through which His purposes are accomplished. His glory is revealed, and His kingdom is advanced. God's call is not just an invitation, it is an opportunity, a chance to step into the life you were created for, to walk in the fullness of His plans, and to experience the depth of His love. It is a moment that requires courage, faith, and trust, but it is also a moment that brings transformation, fulfillment, and joy. Responding to the call is not just about what you do, it is about who you become. It is about becoming the person God created you to be, living the life He has prepared for you, and fulfilling the purpose He has placed on your heart. When God calls you, He does so with purpose. Every divine call is not just a moment of inspiration or a fleeting idea. It is the beginning of a journey that leads to the fulfillment of a purpose that was planned before the foundation of the world. The promise of purpose fulfilled is one of the most profound assurances that God gives to those who respond to His call. It is a promise that, no matter the trials or uncertainties along the way, God will bring His purposes to completion in your life. God's purposes are not arbitrary. They are specific, intentional, and tailored to the unique gifts, experiences, and calling that He has placed within you. From the moment you are born, He weaves His plan into your life, and every moment, every trial, every joy, and every challenge is a part of that divine tapestry. But the promise of purpose fulfilled comes with a powerful reminder. Fulfillment does not always look the way we expect. The journey may be winding, the path may be steep, and there may be seasons of waiting or struggle. But through it all, God's purpose is being fulfilled in and through you. The first aspect of the promise of purpose fulfilled is that God equips those He calls. When He asks you to step into something, He does not leave you to figure it out on your own. He provides everything you need to fulfill the purpose He has placed in your heart. This is not just about your abilities, talents, or knowledge. It is about the divine resources He makes available to you. His strength becomes your strength. His wisdom your guide, His peace your anchor. There is nothing you lack when you walk in the purpose He has for you. Even when the path seems unclear or the obstacles insurmountable, God's equipping power is at work within you. He provides the tools, the support, and the wisdom to fulfill your purpose. Moreover, the promise of purpose fulfilled is also about God's timing. We often feel impatient or discouraged when we don't see immediate results, but God works on a timeline that is far greater than our understanding. His timing is perfect, and He knows exactly when to open doors, when to close them, and when to prepare you for the next step. There may be times when you feel like you are not moving forward or when it seems like your efforts are in vain, but those are the times when God is working behind the scenes, preparing you for the next phase of His plan. The fulfillment of purpose does not always happen immediately, but when it does, it is always in the perfect moment, in alignment with His will and His timing. Another key aspect of the promise of purpose fulfilled is that God's purposes often extend beyond our own lives. When God calls you, He is not just calling you to fulfill a personal ambition. He is calling you to be a part of something much bigger than yourself. His purpose for your life will have an impact on others. It will touch families, communities, and even generations. The fulfillment of purpose is not just about personal success. It is about the ripple effect of your obedience to God's call. When you step into the purpose He has set for you, you become a vessel through which His love, grace, and truth flow to those around you. It is also important to understand that purpose is fulfilled not just through big, dramatic moments, but often in the small, everyday acts of obedience. God's purpose for your life is not confined to one major event or accomplishment. It is found in the quiet faithfulness, the everyday choices, and the consistent trust in each small step of obedience adds to the larger picture of His plan, and each moment spent walking in His will is a step closer to the fulfillment of the purpose He has ordained for you. This is a process, not a one-time event, and God is at work in every moment, shaping you, refining you, and guiding you toward the fulfillment of His purpose in your life. The promise of purpose fulfilled is also a promise of peace. When you are walking in God's purpose for your life, there is a peace that comes from knowing you are exactly where you are meant to be. Even in the midst of difficulty or uncertainty, there is a deep sense of assurance that God is in control and that His purpose will prevail. This peace is not dependent on external circumstances. It is rooted in the trust that God is faithful to His promises and that He will bring to completion what He has started in you. It is the peace that passes all understanding, the peace that comes when you surrender to His will and rest in the knowledge that His plan is always for your good. Ultimately, the fulfillment of purpose is not about your success, your reputation, or your achievements. It is about knowing that you have lived your life in alignment with God's will, fulfilling the unique calling He placed upon your heart. The promise of purpose fulfilled is the promise that, as you walk in obedience to God's call, you will see His plan unfold in your life in ways that bring glory to Him and joy to your soul. And when you stand before Him at the end of your journey, you will hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." This is the true fulfillment of purpose. The assurance that your life has been lived for His glory, that you have accomplished what He created you to do, and that you have been a part of something eternal.